I always think the only reason I actually stuck around at wrestling is having camaraderie from the beginning is probably what kept me wrestling. So it was so great for me mentally to be like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to be a full-time wrestler. That dream isn't going to come true. But now I have this whole other thing to focus on. I've always had to be in a gang, in a club, in the center. I don't do well alone. I do remember having that discussion with Phil about what if we did close the school, or what if we did decide that we didn't want to keep going with this? Like, what would happen? I actually put off having a kid until my 30s with the mindset of I want to give myself until I'm 30 to have a proper go. And actually, I suppose Becky was a big part of that as well. The fact that like Becky left at the height of her career, seeing her come back, and I was just like, oh my God, look at the level she's wrestling at. Look at how amazing she looks. And then you've got Aoife, my best friend of 10 years, and I screenshot the picture and I was like, this is you going into an all women's pay-per-view with two of the greatest to do it. And she was just like, I know. Oh, this is getting deep, isn't it?
Hello, my friends. We meet again. You're very welcome back to another edition of Ring Psychology here at Low Blows Podcast. And thank you to all of you who have listened to the first couple of episodes. We had Justy on for the first episode and Michael May, and both gave us great interviews. So I'd like to thank them as well for contributing at this early stage of this brand new Low Blows Podcast venture. Today's guest is a good friend of mine. I'm going to be speaking with, some call her the Queen of Irish Wrestling. Others who know her like a little better will probably call her the Mammy of Irish Wrestling. It is the one, the only good friend of mine. I still am getting my friends to help me out with interview. It's tough to get an interview, show off the ground while you're still building a name for yourself. But fortunately, I have really cool friends. It is the one, the only Katey Harvey. She's going to be joining us for a conversation unlike any other we've had before, very, very shortly. I cannot wait. But before we get to that, I must remind you, of course, Ring Psychology is brought to you in association with our SummerSlam weekend party in Woolshed, Dublin. It is going to be great, guys. And this week, we announced our theme for SummerSlam Saturday. This time next week, I'm going to be talking to you about what our theme is for SummerSlam Sunday, but that's for then. SummerSlam Saturday, Woolshed is going back to the beach. Always one of our favorites. It is SummerSlam, so the only way we can celebrate it is with a beach fucking party. We're going to have a lot of beach games. We're going to have the likes of Limbo. We're going to have Giant Connect 4. We're going to have Giant Jenga. There's going to be loads of fun that you guys can get involved in. You can get up on the Woolshed stage, play these beach games. There's going to be beer pong. There's going to be loads going on. It's going to be mad crack, and you win free drink to get you nice and boozed up before watching SummerSlam Saturday on all of the Woolshed screens. It is going to be class. I cannot wait, and that is just one of the two nights that Low Blows, the best fan parties in the world, is running for WWE SummerSlam. Do not miss them, guys. Don't sit at home giving out, saying, oh, like SummerSlam could have been better, wishing you had a better weekend. It's the August Bank Holiday weekend, all right? You should have no problem getting it off work. If you're not off already, go out and treat yourself to the SummerSlam you deserve, guys. It is going to be absolutely class. I cannot wait. Of course, we're coming off another huge wrestling weekender with not one, not two, not three, but four fucking shows over the weekend. As I was saying last week, I actually had to catch up with a lot of them after the fact, because I was at a beautiful wedding for my friends Anna and John down in Galway, which was absolutely fantastic. Had a great time. It was a beautiful ceremony, and I was honoured to be able to help them celebrate their love. But it was a little bit of an inconvenience because I had to catch Superman shortly after the fact, and then I had to catch all the wrestling after the fact, and there was so much fucking wrestling, guys. So much fucking wrestling. We started with AEW All In, and that went on for about 72 hours in itself, if you include the pre-show as well. Then you had the WWE or NXT Great American Bash. I think they're still calling it WWE. shows, even though it is NXT because Netflix and they want to just make it simple for everyone. But it was an NXT show. And then that night we had, of course, Goldberg's last match on Saturday Night Main Event. And then rounded off the weekend, I was able to watch Evolution live and I'd pretty much caught up with it by then. Really fun weekend with a lot to like about it. Fun finish to Evolution with Naomi winning the women's championship, defeating Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, which seems to set up SummerSlam quite interestingly now. I imagine it'll be her and Jade Cargill for the belt. But we don't know. We'll see. We'll find out as the weeks roll on. We're only 3 weeks away from SummerSlam now. Goldberg wrestled his last match. I thought it was one of those matches where there's a lot of breaks during a Saturday Night Main Event, and I felt like they suited him. He's not a young man. He requires regular breaks within himself, and I felt like he suited him. I thought Gunther did really, really well to get the best match possible out of Goldberg. Of course, the big news from Saturday night's main event was the devastating injury to Seth Rollins. Apparently, there was rumors that he was set to cash in, which would kind of give an idea that Goldberg was planned to win the championship, only to have Rollins end his career by cashing in on him, which of course was scuppered, and of course the match finish with LA Knight ended up having to be changed. Recording this on Monday before Raw's even aired, where Seth Rollins is due to be a part in it, so I don't know the extent of it, but it's really sad because Seth has been a valuable player within the WWE kind of main event scene, but more of a supporting role to the kind of stars the WWE wanted to push. And this year he was kind of getting back to probably our favorite version of Seth Rollins. You remember the guy who held the belt for ages after winning it at WrestleMania 31, being the centerpiece of kind of Triple H and Stephanie's stable back then, and he was really effective as a heel, and he was kind of getting back to that. So puts things kind of in limbo, but on a personal note, I hope he recovers soon. But AEW All In was the highlight of the weekend. I think most of us will agree, highlighted by a fairly incredible and intense Texas Deathmatch main event where Hangman Adam Page defeated Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship, which saw the comebacks of Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson and Darby Allin, among others, and Swerve Strickland kind of going around and finally siding and helping Adam Page win the belt. Jon Moxley, now his title reign ends. There's rumors that WWE are planning a big, shocking AEW signing, a former AEW world champion to be launched at SummerSlam. And I suppose the next few weeks we'll see the rumors intensify around, is Jon Moxley on his way back to WWE? Could we see some sort of Shield reunion in the works in the future? So we don't know. We'll see. It'll probably just be Jericho coming back doing one last run, but we'll find out, and it'll be interesting regardless of who it is. I don't think there's a bad choice as an AEW world champion to make the jump that wouldn't be interesting. Jericho probably the least interesting, but we shall see. It'd be really cool. Either way, whatever version of Moxley we get is a good version. So of course you also had the Omega Okada match, and that's always going to be a win for me. That's one of the matches that kind of fueled my obsession with New Japan Pro Wrestling as we head into our G1 Climax tournament, which is going to be different to a lot of other G1 Climax tournaments this week. So I'm very in a New Japan mode. I'm going to AEW for a New Japan Forbidden Door in London next month on the Sunday that SmackDown comes of the weekend that SmackDown comes to 3 Arena. I'm going to both of them. So I'm looking forward to all of that. And Omega and Okada delivered, as they always do, probably the weakest of their matches. And I feel like it's kind of more of a tribute to those matches that they're doing rather than having it be a fresh feud as it was when they initially had their legendary matches. But you're never going to get a bad match with the two of them. I also loved the tag team match with Swerve and Ospreay against the Young Bucks. I thought they went out and had a lot of fun, and it was really entertaining. I don't want to be critical of AEW, and I think a lot of people think that I am and can be more critical of them than WWE. And to be honest, that's not the case. Last week I came on the podcast and said, don't bitch about this, the fact that there's 4 shows in one weekend. Like, watch the shows you want to watch, ignore the ones you don't want to. This is your hobby. It should be fun. Enjoy your hobbies. But man, AEW, like, the highs were really high. It was an excellently put together show, as all All In stadium shows usually are. I've been at the other ones in Wembley Stadium for both of them. But fuck me, it took me 4 goes to watch it. It surpassed the record for the longest pay-per-view of all time, surpassing WrestleMania 35 at 6 hours. It took me 4 hours. I watched a little bit on Saturday night after I came back from day 2 of the wedding. I watched some of it on Saturday morning. Then I watched like all of my train journey home from Galway to Dublin. So that's a long train journey. I watched it and I still hadn't got to the main event. I had to watch the main event at home. And it's a shame because I think we're in the era of where wrestling is coming back a little bit towards the less is more side of things. And I think AEW is a little bit out of sync with that. And it's a shame because the highs are fucking high, but it just feels like Tony Khan is an ADHD riddled kid who just wants to be like wrestling all the time, wrestling all the time. I'll give you all the wrestling every hour of the day. Watch me, look at me, look at me, look at my company. Isn't this great? Look at this, look at this, look at this. Now watch Ring of Honor. Now do this, now do this. 500 title belts. That's how AEW, it's overwhelming at times. And I'm a fan of AEW. I watched all of it. I did. I gave them between that and Dynamite, and then I watched the Countdown show, and then I watched the highlights of Collision. I probably gave AEW like 9 hours of my life since I've last spoken on this podcast. I am a fan, so I get to talk about this and complain. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that because I'm tribal towards WWE. But part of it is you have to leave people wanting more and you have to make your product accessible to people as well. And they took a good step by having the pay-per-view start at an accessible time of 8 p.m., which meant that, if I wasn't at a wedding, I probably would have watched it all live. And I would have given up a Saturday night for that. And I would have not had to stay up till 5 a.m., but they still would have made it a slog by ending at 2 a.m. It's frankly ridiculous. 6 hours is way too much. And the pay-per-view itself was fucking baggy. I think the 2 casino gauntlet matches, like, individually went around a half an hour. And that's a fucking gauntlet match. I think the 4-way match that was a replacement for the Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia, and thoughts with Adam Cole. Hope everything is okay there after suffering a concussion, having to pull out and giving an emotional speech. I think that 4-way match that hadn't been advertised, that alone was 20 minutes. There's a lot to be said for leaving people to want more of your company or to actually make it easy for them. And WWE, to their credit, I don't love everything WWE does. I think I probably don't criticize them as much just because they are who they are. They're going to do Saudi Arabian shows. Their mother-in-law is part of Donald Trump's cabinet. You kind of got to just say, am I willing to just deal with this for the sake of getting Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, WrestleMania, John Cena's heel turn, Lyra Valkyria, Becky Lynch, Finn Balor, and I make the choice and say yes. Okay, the positives are worth just fucking dealing with the negatives. AEW just seems like the issues that I have with them are very, very fixable though, by being intelligent in how they present their product. Like, why could a Casino Gauntlet #1 contendership match not have been like 15 minutes? Like, why does every match need to have a main event feel? There's a lot to be said for giving matches specific, like an opening match, like the opening match of Evolution this weekend, the 3-way with Becky, Lyra Valkyria, and Bayley was a perfect opening match. It was a sprint. It had, the highs were high. They came in. They knew exactly why they were there. They were there to get the crowd hot and keep them hot without burning them out. They didn't try wrestle at 40-minute main event matches with WrestleMania style entrances. They got in, did the fucking thing, and got out. And that's how you structure a card. And WWE have even gone back to structuring their cards around maybe 5 matches rather than 8, 9, 10 matches on a pay-per-view, but you care about the 5 individual matches. And maybe the tag team feud will be on the main event of SmackDown. That'll be when that feud that you've been following is decided. So it's worth watching SmackDown and it's worth watching the pay-per-view, and you never feel overwhelmed by it all, which is how I feel with AEW sometimes. The pre-show for the 6-hour All-In show, which would have started at 10 a.m. local time, was 2 hours in itself, with I think 3 or 4 extra matches on top of the slate of matches that AEW main show had. This is too much. Calm it down, guys. Make me miss you. Like, you don't have to have every wrestler on every pay-per-view, even the stadium ones. You can pick and choose the ones that people care about. You can do stuff like battle royals, like on Evolution, where it's like, right, there's a lot of people we want to get on this card because it may be the only all women's pay-per-view that we have for another couple of years. So try to get as many people involved. Here's a battle royal. Doesn't overstay its welcome. It's fun. It has the spots. It gets in. It gets out. It keeps the card going. It keeps the momentum going. Doesn't kill the atmosphere for the main event by trying to be something epic. And that's the thing. Like, the highs are high with AEW. All of those things that I spoke about were entertaining in and of themselves. Every wrestler there can have an amazing main event match, but that doesn't mean that every wrestler should on every show. They need to be disciplined. They need to make it accessible, because there is a difference between the interests in AEW and WWE. It's not a competition anymore. They have lost, and it is simple things like this that are fixable that are losing it for them. You'll notice I'm never once criticizing the talent here. The talent is incredible that they have, but they're doing a disservice to the talent by being overly indulgent with this stuff and going out of their way to do a 6-hour show. Nobody wants a 6-hour pay-per-view. WrestleMania 35, we ran a Low Blows party for it. You remember the highlights. Becky won the main event. Amazing. Kofi Kingston beat Daniel Bryan for the title. Amazing. But there was so much baggy shit on it as well that I remember the party itself. People were tired. Nobody was going away saying, we need more WrestleManias. They went away and said, if you're going to make it that long, do 2-day WrestleManias. And that's what they've done, because people don't want more wrestling. Just saying more wrestling says, I'm insecure about this as a company. I'm insecure and I want to just overload you with shit just so that you'll be forced to kind of watch us for the highlights. But it tells me you also can't edit yourself. It's like that phase where every movie that came out felt that it needed to be 2.5 to 3 hours to be great. Whereas actually then we've got a really fun Superman movie that was released the weekend that got a lot done, but was 2 hours. And we're at the stage in movies as well, and in a lot of forms of entertainment, where they are realizing that there is a skill to having a short runtime. I try and do it in podcasts, but I shy on a lot, and I'm working on it, but I'm aware of it, and I just don't feel AEW are aware of it, because I should just be talking about how amazing this show was because there were so many amazing things on it. But instead, what I and a lot of other people are coming away with, or why a lot of people aren't talking about it because they didn't watch it, despite how amazing some of the high points were, was because it's fucking difficult to watch a 6-hour show. It's difficult to fit that much time in, especially when you've got 2-hour weekly shows on top of it. We have lives to live. We've other interests. There's more content coming at us at all time. Make it easy for us, AEW. Help us help you, because when you're good, you can be very fucking good. But just make it easy for us. Anyway, that's my rant for this week. We'll move on to Katey Harvey. We'll have her coming up very shortly. I haven't done the interview yet. I'm really looking forward to it. Katey obviously is a good friend of mine. Long-term listeners to Low Blows will know she was a co-host with me. Her and Cobra Keen, I think, are the longest pairing that we ever had with myself as co-hosts on the Low Blows podcast. And she was excellent in that. And like, she was one of, like, the thing that made it funny when Katey was a host on the Low Blow show is that it was me, her, and Corporate Keen as a trio. And she is by far the most relevant person in that room. She's had a full successful wrestling career and is known and respected by pretty much everyone who matters in the industry, at the very least in the women's wrestling industry, for what she's done and how she's influenced people like her best friend Lyra Valkyria. She's also someone that probably, you know, if she'd have come along a little bit later and not been the trailblazer, could be experiencing the success that Lyra Valkyria is now in WWE. She's been talented enough. She's got the full package as well. And it's interesting because her career has gone a different way, and she's chosen to make her career more about training others and running Fight Factory. And she's kind of got a full life. She had to squeeze me in to do this interview, and I really appreciate that. but I'm really looking forward to kind of talking to her because we do still keep in touch. She's a person who is not just a wrestling friend who I, reach out to like every when it's relevant for us to do so. She's someone that I still talk to on a regular to semi-regular basis, and she's someone that I consider an actual friend in real life. But I've never got to do or release publicly an interview like this with her. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting thoughts on, and I don't know if this is going to come up because these interviews are led by the wrestler. I just kind of guide them and steer them. I'm not kind of looking, I don't have an agenda. I don't have a bunch of questions that I have to ask. We just let the conversation go where it goes. But I'd love to talk to her about, like, she's now a mother. That's why we ended the Lobos podcast, because she was literally like weeks away from giving birth. And now that child is a toddler, an adorable toddler. Um, and she's juggling that and still working and running Fight Factory and trying to have her own wrestling career as well. I'd love to see how she feels about that. Since we would have had weekly conversations on podcasts, her best friend in Lyra Valkyria has gone on to the point that last night she was wrestling Becky Lynch and fucking Bailey for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, which she was the first champion in that division ever. That's amazing. I'd love to kind of get an insight into Katey's thoughts on that. Obviously, you can infer she's proud, she's happy for her friend, but it'd be interesting to go, like, do you ever look at it and kind of go, what if that was me? Or can she just look at it and completely separate herself from that process? So there's a lot to talk about Katey. No two conversations with Katey are ever the same, and she's never boring. And she's also an excellent, really generous, giving guest on any podcast. And it's a pleasure to chat to her anytime. So I'm not going to hold you back from listening to us do so now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ring Psychology. Here's my guest, the one and only Katey Harvey. Katey Harvey, Queen of Irish Wrestling, the mammy of Irish Wrestling, some may say. Thank you for joining us on Ring Psychology. It's good to chat to you. It's been a while since we've done this setup on podcasts.
Yeah, I like as I said to you before we started, I don't even have a setup anymore for podcasts. This is just me and a phone, like hoping everything goes well technology wise.
That's all good. That's all good. Well, look, it's good to chat to you again, and probably a different conversation than we would have had, because like previously it would have been us talking about the world of wrestling. Now we're here to talk about you and like reflect specifically on the life and times of Katey Harvey and have a catch up maybe for people who would have listened to us back in the day and kind of, just seen bits maybe on socials and stuff, but not being clued into what's going on in Katey's world. I guess I'll start with kind of the same type of question that I'd open all of these interviews with. And if you just give me three words and then that come to mind, they don't have to be connected, they can be three random words. But if I was to ask you to describe this in three words, what are the words that immediately come to mind to you? And the phrase is, I'll make it nice and easy for you. Fight Factory Pro Wrestling. You're wearing the t-shirt, so you may as well go there.
Loyalty, compassion, and integrity.
Oh, I like that. Jeez, there's some Kurt Angle level words. Like they're like three eyes. I love it. I suppose of those three words, then what is the one that kind of interests you straight away? Is there one that you're like, oh, why did they say that? That's actually, I want to talk a bit more about that. Is there one that's specifically standing out to you there?
I suppose compassion. Um, my day job is I manage like regular gyms. So I manage like two regular gyms and I coach coaches. So that's like my day job. And basically I'm very into the psychology of being able to coach different populations. So one of the things in my day job that I try apply to Fight Factory is just recognizing different personalities and then how do I coach to reach that personality?
Mm,
Because some people will want to be drill sergeant shouting down 10 more push-ups. Some people will want, to be explained. Some people want to have their hand held. Some people be nervous. Some people will, just need a bit of a push. Some people need an ego boost. Everyone has like a different way they respond to coaching and training. And I just think compassion is very important to be able to look at everyone's different situations and kind of have a think about how they should be coached because generally people who train you want that to be the best 45 minutes of their day, the best hour of their day, the best 2 hours of their day. It's time they're giving up out of their life away from their family, their goals, their work to better themselves. It's a very cool responsibility to be in charge of that time someone has carved out to better themselves. And like I think it applies to pro wrestling and it applies to just going to the gym or whatever you've decided to do for yourself to improve your physical health, your mental health, whatever. Um, so I just think there has to be a certain amount of compassion when you're coaching. And I think when you're training alongside people, there has to be a certain amount of compassion because you don't know what anyone else is going through. You don't know what else has gone on in their day. You don't know they might have had the worst morning of their lives, the worst day of their lives, but they've come in, switch off. There's something about training that they need. And it's just about recognizing that not everyone is able to go and give 100% every day. Not everyone is going to train at 100% every time they come in, both in the wrestling ring and in, regular gyms. So I do think you just have to have a lot of compassion when you're in charge of like people's physical and mental well-being like that.
You've been wrestling now since what year did you start wrestling?
2011.
2011. Okay, so 14 years now, and obviously you didn't come into it as a trainer. Um, One thing that stood out to me was when I would have started training, I had all these notions, and I ended up obviously working with you in Fight Factory for a brief time. Why just sack me, by the way? Let's just go there. No, I'm only messing. I ended up working with Fight Factory, and the thing that drew me, it wasn't like, I wasn't looking to make a name for myself or do anything. My days of trying to make it in wrestling were well done by then. It was because the disappointment that I felt when I first walked in as a 17-year-old kid to training and found it to be a bit of a lion's den with not much structure. It was a world away from like the sporting world that I was even used to. And that was low level, like of community and working together and everyone trying to work as a team and be better. It was like a lion's den, it felt like. And again, that's not shade on the school it was. I think that's like just how wrestling training is a lot of places. Did you notice a need? And again, I don't want to make this personal or specific on your trainer or anything like that. And I know you started in Fight Factory too, like so. Um, but did you notice something that you thought this is something that I can personally bring to this? Is that what drew you towards it, or do you think that side of you has always been there, the trainer slash mammy side that obviously you've realized today?
I don't think it was intentional, but it was probably always there. So even before I became a gym trainer, and I've been working in gyms for 10 years, I I taught karate and I taught karate specifically to kids. Um, so it gave me a lot of kind of patience again at like sort of dealing with different people. But I did notice that when I started as well, the same thing that you noticed is it was not a very nice environment, if I'm being honest. Um, I always think the only reason I actually stuck around at wrestling is shortly after I joined, Fight Factory launched an all women's class. Um, and I do feel like having camaraderie from the beginning is probably what kept me wrestling. Um, I had tried a couple of the mixed classes and I found them really loud. I found them really sort of intense. And because I was the only girl there, it was just, I don't want to say an uncomfortable environment because that gives off like weird connotations,
Yeah.
but it was definitely like, oh, it took me aback. So when the women's class launched, that was very important to me. And it was me and four other girls every single week. We built up a genuine friendship. We built up genuine support with each other. Because wrestling is very physically demanding. It's quite mentally demanding as well, because especially back then, it was that mentality of you have to give 100% all the time. There was none of this recognition that I think exists now that like some people are doing this as a hobby. Some people are doing this to keep fit. Some people just like to be involved in the industry, but they've no desire to pursue WWE. Maybe they just want to have one match and then they're done. Maybe they just want to, spend a couple of years and then they're done. I don't think there was that kind of understanding back then, the way there is now. So it was just a very weird kind of tunnel vision environment when I started. So I just think it's naturally evolved over the last few years to kind of be a bit broader and, like I said, be a little bit more compassionate and kind of just recognize that there's different people involved for different reasons and they all need to be treated differently. Once someone is coming into the mats and they're competent and they're safe, I think that's the main thing. And then I think it doesn't matter what way they branch off in wrestling.
Hmm. You say, I feel like you're being a bit humble there. You say, oh, things just happened to evolve. You know, it just the world just magically grew into the area that I liked it to be, despite me running a wrestling school. You know what I mean? You could probably take a lot of credit yourself and Phil for the work that you guys put into that evolution. Um, and I know Phil himself, and I'm sure I'd love to have Phil on, you know, and have his own conversation. So I'm not asking you to speak for him, but like, I know he stepped into the Fight Factory role, and it wasn't necessarily a choice that he made. It was just either you do this or the school closes, and you don't want the school to close. So that's that. Um, but was there a conscious effort, I suppose, in that, like your observations and noticing that? Did you take that on? You didn't become a trainer like immediately, I imagine, but did you take that on as, oh, there's actually a void here that me and these other women can kind of fill, and we can make this into something? Because I don't believe that it just naturally got to where it got to, and the world has changed. I think people change it, and I think you're probably
Mm.
someone who had quite a strong hand in that, at least in this corner of the world. Was there a conscious effort? What, like, how did that evolution come about from your vantage point, anyway?
Well, yeah, I think Phil was the first one to have a conscious effort that like community and camaraderie was something that was needed in wrestling. Just even things like he started like if you haven't seen someone train in a few weeks, drop them a message and see why. Do you know, there's so many people who maybe missed a few weeks and then felt like they couldn't come back. You know,
Mm,
they'd missed too much. People are talking about me or this. Um, so he was the first person, like, okay, I'm going to reach out to this person and just find out why, and that's something I do in my day job. I do a lot of retention calls and retention work because it is so important that people feel like, oh, they missed me. They missed that
mm,
I wasn't there. They noticed I wasn't there. So yeah, of course I feel welcome to come back. And then I think what happened is COVID put everything under a magnifying glass because all of a sudden we were forced out of our community. Wrestling is you're trusting the people you train with your body, with your safety. So you do form like very tight bonds, and then all of a sudden during COVID, we couldn't train, we couldn't see each other. For a lot of youngsters, especially, that was their social lives completely eliminated because they're living at home, so they don't have that like, oh, I'll go see my mates on a Tuesday. Um, so I think when we came back after COVID, community just became like the number one thing to everybody, and to be honest, I only really started coaching after COVID. I would have helped out with classes beforehand, but actually kind of saying like, okay, you know what? Saturdays are my classes. This is my coaching plan. This is my progression. These are people I can say I had a hand in training. That only really happened after COVID. Um, and to be honest, the injury that I had was probably a big part of that as well, because pre-COVID, I would have been very focused on pursuing my own career, trying to get to WWE, trying to make it a full-time thing. And then obviously I got injured and COVID happened, so I had to kind of pivot and reevaluate things. And Phil had come up with this like great idea to start running shows in the school, the episode shows, this kind of new concept of like bring your own beer over 18s, like build that niche of people who just wanted like a good night out. Um, and he kind of just said to me, he was like, "Look, do you want to do more? Do you want to do you want to book this show?" And then like just slowly I started like getting more involved with that side of the school because obviously anyone who ever listened to our other podcasts was with me through the whole injury journey. They know how hard it was. So it was so great for me mentally to be like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to be a full-time wrestler. That dream isn't going to come true. But now I have this whole other thing to focus on. And I think that's what made me very focused on community as well, is like when I got injured, I've talked about this a lot of times before. So yeah, obviously having my friends in the hospital and just, having them come to visit me and like the support systems. And I remember doing Irish wrestling, like all the guys down in Cork wrestling, like had raffles and released t-shirts, to help me raise money, and like yourselves were amazing raising money, and like I was so overwhelmed with gratitude by like the community that I was just like, yes, this is this is what I'm a part of. This is what's important, and this is what we need to nurture going forwards. Um, like there's still work to do. There's always work to do, but I do feel like in our school in particular, um, I feel like that's something we do really, really well. You know,
Hmm.
we tend to keep people for a long time. And I always thought it was sad in the past, you know, when someone would stop training and they would just drop altogether from the wrestling scene. Like we've had plenty of people who've tried wrestling, decided it's not for them, but they still continue coming to the shows as fans. Or they might get involved in production, or they might get involved in some other area. And like that's what I want because wrestling isn't just about what's in ring. It's everything. It's everything that, you know, from the person working on the door to the person sharing your post on Facebook. That's all important community involvement. So that's a good aspect I think's evolved as well. It's not like you stop wrestling, you disappear. You know,
Yeah.
it's just a much broader spectrum, I think, across Ireland.
My observation is that, and put me straight here, maybe I just have a limited view because I am so close to Fight Factory. I've been on the inside for a kind of that, growth moment for you guys, like particularly in terms of doing shows. So maybe I'm biased here, but for me, that seems something quite unique to Fight Factory. It seems like a vision that you guys have kind of focused on. That's certainly what drew me to it. And this is before COVID as well. So I would have started with you guys around 2018, thereabouts. Um, and that was something that stood out straight away. That it was like it is a community. Do you think that that's something that has been adopted elsewhere now? Because again, for me, it still feels kind of unique. Or do you think that wrestling is kind of coming around to your viewpoint?
Yeah, I think it's naturally evolving in other places as well. Probably how it's evolved with us. Like there's plenty of other like schools and promotions we'd have like close links with. Whether it's having like them in as guest trainers or our guys traveling. Places like New Wave in the UK, I believe, are ran very, very similar from chatting to the guys who run that. Like Flash Morgan, Mark Andrews, all that. They seem, you know, very, very tight knit. I work in Titanic a lot. That's a great crew. That's a tight knit crew as well that look out for each other. So it does seem to be a lot of places that are just naturally evolving towards this more community aspect as well. Which is brilliant. I think those places are starting to find each other.
Katie, I am going to make you say something nice about yourself throughout the course. This is becoming my mission now. Um, and not deflect and give credit to everyone else at this. But I do want to kind of go back. Do you remember, what's your earliest memory of watching wrestling? Like, do you remember where you are? Do you remember what's on TV? Do you remember like what's happening there?
Um, I remember, I remember WCW was on Saturday nights on Channel 5,
Okay.
WCW Worldwide. And we used to all pile into someone's house at 7 o'clock and watch it as a group. Like,
Who's we all like your school friends? Like, kind
yeah,
of.
like school friends, my brother. Yeah, so it used to be like a big, you know, when everyone was watching wrestling growing up,
Yeah.
we just never really grew out with the phase. But like
Yeah.
there was a point when everyone watched it. And yeah, I remember piling to people's like I remember being at a birthday party next door and it hit 7 o'clock and the birthday party stopped so we could all watch WCW. And the parents were just like, will we play past the parcel? We were like, oh my God, Bret Hart is talking. Like, you know, just real disgusted that this would be interrupted. So I think
It
we
is
all
quite
just kind of,
unique that I know we said this to you plenty of times before in the old show, but it is quite unique that WCW was the cool thing because I've never
yeah,
heard of that being the cool thing for like
yeah,
other people and groups, but like that's very unique. And then I guess the kind of the reason I asked that is like why and in that friend group, like were you the only one who went on to pursue it? Like you did say you were the one who didn't grow out of it. Were you the only one, or was there anyone else in that?
just me. I don't think anyone else even still watches it. My
Okay,
brother occasionally keeps up with it, but it's more so like secretive. Do you know,
right.
like we'll let on he doesn't watch it, but then like we'll be in the kitchen and be like, do you see Randy Orton there at WrestleMania? You know, like so I'm like, I knew you were still keeping up to date with it.
It just it slipped while it was on Netflix. It's so easy to happen these days. That's gas. Um, why was that though? So, what is it about this that made you go, no, this is me. I'm gonna make this a core part of my identity. In the way that all of us have made that decision at one point. But I think there's different drivers and there's different things in our life that different holes, not holes in our life because that makes it sound negative, and it's not always a negative thing,
Mm,
but there's different holes that wrestling fills.
mm.
And what do you think that was that drew you to it, and you're like, oh no, this has now changed the course of my life?
Like, it's hard to pinpoint. I think I do have quite an obsessive personality. So if I find something that I love, like I will deep dive every aspect of it. And like wrestling is just so vast. Like there's
Right.
so much in it. And it's that thing is like you might go through a phase of like, oh yeah, I'm only watching Japanese deathmatch wrestling right now. But then like you'll have another phase or another phase and it kind of grows and changes with you because there's so
Mm,
many different focuses. And it's just kind of like a an ever-changing but constant medium. And like
right.
it's just like I love films, I love music, I love pop culture in general, and it's kind of like the best of all of that because it's stories, it's just a world to dive into.
So why, like, again, I get that it's a combination and it's taking multiple. So that kind of answers the question I'm thinking then. But like some people do acting. Some people go and learn the guitar. Because again, like you can learn the guitar, but you're never going to learn every song that ever existed. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
you can
Mm.
say that of all the things that you listed. So why are you doing wrestling now and not one of those things?
Um, I suppose I suppose my other big love growing up as well was karate.
Right.
Like I was like very hardcore, training 5, 6 times a week, like competing at like a good level. And again, it was like, to be honest, that was kind of my community before wrestling. I've
Mm.
just always been a club person. I've always had to be in a gang, in a club, in the center. I don't do well alone. Like I like my alone time, but I
Yeah.
don't do well alone. I know I'm a pack person. Like I
Yeah.
know I like some people like to joke that like I just collect people because if a situation comes up, I'm the one who'd be like, I have a pal who can do that. I know someone who, you know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
I if you're my friend, I tend to keep you for life. You don't
Yeah.
really get away from me. And I kind of like that because I don't think every friendship has to be an intense, oh, let's talk every day. I think you just should form good connections with people in your life. And I might only talk to you once a year, but if I see you that once a year, we'll just pick up where we left off. You know,
Yeah.
I like having different relationships. I like having different people in my life. Yeah, I'm just very much a pack person.
You must have then a real sense of certainty in your life choices that a lot of people probably, in very similar life situations as you, like where working, you're a mother now, and like, very typical situation on one side, but then you're also like, you found the thing that you love. Because when you say that, it's like it infuses all of your interests. It's like sports, groups, arts, like everything. You must
Mm,
feel like, yeah, yeah, no, I'm exactly where I need to be.
mm. Yeah, like no, it does to be fair. And like maybe learning more about wrestling did kind of like realize it ticked off a lot of boxes in my head. Where I was talking to someone recently about books that inspired us, wrestlers' biographies. Like my favorite has always been like Mick Foley's biography. Um, and I think the stories he told about just kind of coming up and training and stuff, I was always just that's kind of oh yeah. Like that's cool. Like that is sort of like trial by fire. If you go through that with someone, it bonds you, you know? Like I think that probably really appealed to me as well, is that like going through something with someone is really cool. Do you know,
Mm.
having this sort of thing that like people on the outside don't understand. It's their thing. And it probably appeals to that pack mentality again that like, do you know, this is a very special interest thing and like we're part of it, you know?
Yeah, there's a certain type of sicko who like will read Mick Foley's like, I used to sleep in cars on my way to training and be like, that's a really cool way of life. Whereas like 95% of the world is like, what? Like, why would you do that? So yeah, there is. And I get it. Like I read the same book and had the same thoughts, so that makes sense. But that's a beautiful thing though, like having that sense of certainty in your life that you're like where you need to be, surrounded by the people you need to be surrounded by. Has it always been that way? Like, have you had that, or has there been times where you're just like, I don't know if this is for me. Maybe I've taken a wrong turn here, or maybe something else should have been that, or maybe I don't love this anymore? Has there been periods where you've kind of had those doubts and feelings?
Oh, this is getting deep, isn't it? Yeah,
Right.
I suppose there was one point, and it was probably, was it after getting injured? Where I kind of was just like, what if I don't go back? Do you know, like I do remember having that discussion with Phil about what if we did close the school, or what if we did decide that we didn't want to keep going with this? Like, what would happen? It was kind of more of a what if than a serious doubt. I kind of accepted that wrestling is going to be a part of my life in some way forever. Like, it's just the way it
Yeah.
is. Even my daughter is ingrained in wrestling and she's 3 years old, you know. Um, so I've
She's
accepted
already
it.
better at doing backwards than I ever was. Like I've seen her like in the stories.
Yeah, she
Not
loves
it's
her
no
trainer.
surprise that the daughter of Katie Harvey and Philip Boyd is already great. But yeah.
Well, yes, that's how I'll stay involved. I'm gonna ride her coattails to WrestleMania, so I'm gonna stage mom her now till no, I won't. If she tells me she doesn't want to wrestle, that's fine. Fine.
Is
Um,
it really fun, or is it like are you committed to this now? Because a lot of people will say like, no, God, no, I don't want my, but like that's another beautiful thing where you're like, no, this has been an amazing positive in my life, and I'd like you to have that same experience if that's what you want. Is that kind of where you're feeling, or
it kind of leans back into the pack mentality thing. Is like, I don't actually mind if she doesn't want to wrestle, but I want her to do something. So if she turned to me and said, so she's joined a
yeah,
football team, for example, you know, if she turned to me and said, no,
right,
I want to do football 3 times a week, cool, I will be there 3 times a week, you know. Um, but I do want her to do something. I want her to have some sort of outlet that
yeah.
she loves, and I don't mind what we have to try. I don't mind what it ends up being, but it has to be something.
But would you quite like that thing to be wrestling
I would
secretly?
love it.
You
Yeah,
can admit.
I would love it. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, I would.
And are you already kind of fantasy booking where you're like, do you want to like one day would you like to like have a tag match with her and stuff like that as well? Like, I know you think like this, so
I mean, has there ever been a match where a mum, a dad, and a child have been a trio?
I don't think so. I can't think of it. You'd say that the
Oh.
Levex maybe, no, like the McMahon stack kind of, but no. I don't think so. No, because Linda ruined it. Like, so yeah, that'll be a first.
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
that's our
very
future.
exciting.
Maybe that's our destiny.
Episode 345. Wait and see, guys. Um, that's really cool though. I guess kind of then in terms of like, you know, and obviously look, I am asking kind of, questions about, your daughter and stuff like that as well. I want to talk about you specifically, but obviously being a mother would have probably changed things in wrestling considerably then as well, has it? Like, and like, but it's great that you're finding that community. But like, I think a lot of people would wonder, like, for me, and I'll give you an example. Um, I left wrestling, um, partly because I'm like, I want to have a normal life. I don't want to kind of do I'm glad I did this, but I want to like do the whole family thing and stuff like that as well. And there may be some people out there who are like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, and maybe I'll try it, and it's good that I can do it for a hobby and Fight Factory and here and kind of the stuff you're saying. But they're like, but no, I don't like. I would also like that side of things as well. How have you found that aspect with that? And what would you say to someone who's like, oh no, I'd like to be a mother, so I guess wrestling isn't for me? Do you think that you found that those things can actually happily coexist, or how is that?
Yeah, because I actually put off having a kid until my 30s with the mindset of I want to give myself until I'm 30 to have a proper go, and then we can think about whatever. But what I've actually realized is things didn't actually shift as much as I thought they would have to after having a
Mm,
kid. And again, I keep coming back to like how good the community is in Fight Factory, but like Betty can come training with me And I know straight away people are just going to start playing with her. They're going to look after her.
Yeah, you have an army of babysitters.
Oh, yes, an
Essentially.
army of babysitters. Yes. No,
Yeah,
I'm very lucky that if I go down and I have to do something in the gym, like I can just say, oh, can you watch her for 5 minutes? Can you watch her for 10 minutes? And like, there's people I trust there that will look after her. And she's developed great relationships with a lot of people as well. So, like, if you ask her who her favorite wrestler is, she'll tell you Chini. That's her pet name for Galaccini. Do you know, she'll tell you that
yeah.
it's CBL. She'll tell you that it's the scoop, you know. They're the
Oh,
people that she gravitates towards who'll look after her and play with her, which is really lovely. Um, but everyone is like that, you know, and we have other people in the club who have kids as well. Um, and they may not want to talk about kids and stuff like, but it's not just limited to me. Like it's very much become a family club, which is
that's incredible.
lovely. And it just lets you keep pursuing what you love because you don't feel like you have to choose, you know. Even at the shows and stuff now, there's so many people bringing their kids, bringing their families, and it's just nice to see it evolve that you don't have to hit a certain point and feel like you have to leave wrestling, that there's ways to be involved. You know, it's not a cut and dry choice.
That's incredible.
And actually, I suppose Becky was a big part of that as well. The fact that like Becky left at the height of her career, had a kid and came back. So like we were pregnant at roughly the same time. She was a little bit ahead of me. So like I was like 8 months pregnant when I seen her come back. And I was just like, oh my God, look at the level she's wrestling at. Look at how amazing she looks. And she just brings her kid to shows and like, do you know, it just that wasn't around when I was growing up. You had Dawn
Yeah.
Marie, like, having to leave and all these other people having to leave when they decide to have families. But now you have like, even at the highest level in WWE, is family orientated. And it's just amazing how it's evolved over the last few years.
Yeah, and it's great to hear as well. Like we're kind of coming off the back of we're recording this on the Monday after Evolution. No spoilers in case you haven't got to see it. I'm conscious you're very busy. Have you got to see any of it yet?
I've seen the opener.
You've seen the opener, yeah.
Yeah.
Like fuck me, that finish, Becky's roll up, like even just that roll up, I'm like every day, like she's astounding. But obviously, like yeah, you're watching that and you're seeing like your best friend, Laura Valkyria, in that position. Like having a match of that quality. How does that feel? That must be insane. It must be amazing. It must be very validating. And yeah, it must be there must be a lot going on there, like watching the success of Lyra.
Like it's incredible because like take that triple threat for example, right? So there's Becky, the first woman I ever saw wrestle live at NWA
Mm.
shows in Bray. She gave
Mm.
me the application for NWA Ireland. Didn't use it, but she gave it to me. Um, Bailey, who I have adored for years, her versus Sasha was like the first women's match that made me cry because it was just like this is unbelievable. And then you've got Aoife, my best friend of 10 years, and she's like I remember the go home show where it's like her standing tall over Becky and Bailey, and I screenshot the picture and I was like, "This is you going into an all women's pay per view with two of the greatest to do it." And she was just like, "I know," and it's just so overwhelming. Um,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, there's no way to describe how proud I am of her because she's just. But again, do you know what? To harp back on about the community, like she is a product of her environment. And I do believe that's part of the reason for her success is she's just not only is she a fantastic wrestler, but she's a great person because she came from a great supportive environment and she still reflects that. You know, she's still down the gym every time she comes home. She's still like people can text her for advice. She watches people's matches. She'll help you in any way she can. And it's just, just because you're not down on a weekly basis doesn't mean you're not still part of our family. And
Mm.
that's what's incredible about like her going on, to WWE. And she's not going to be the last. There's going to be other people following her footsteps because now people are actually helping each other up the ladder. Um, because I always said like you can't wrestle yourself. You have to bring the people up around you because that brings everyone up, brings the scene up. And that's how wrestling gets better and how wrestling booms. And right now we're in a boom period. And it's because I think of this like better attitude in wrestling schools that is now swelling up to the top.
Yeah. And she comes up every week now. It's happening. It's only the third show, but like she's coming up every week, as in like she's still involved, she's still staying around, and we've just never seen that. But that benefit that will have happen for everyone else to get that knowledge and that experience there, is absolutely invaluable. And I can't wait to see what comes of it. And it's just amazing to see one of the good guys get that level of success. Very conscious you're on active mammy duty now as we speak, so as much as we could probably chat for hours and have done before, and we probably will do a part two in the future again, because again, always fascinating to check in and get your thoughts. I know a lot of people have missed hearing you on podcasts. We do have one question that I'd like to get your thoughts on, and I'll put you a bit on the spot here, and maybe we might get you to say something nice about yourself before this podcast is out. 20 years from now, you walk in on a conversation, you overhear a conversation about yourself, okay? You can decide who's speaking in this conversation or what the context is, but what do you want? And tell me, like, who would you like to, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to give me names, it can just be like friends, family, fans, this, that, the other, trainees. Who's having the conversation and what do you want them to be saying about Katey Harvey? What would you like people to be saying about you in 20 years? And who is it that...
God, this is a tough one. We actually do a drill similar to this in my job. So when you teach a class, you have to imagine you've went to the changing rooms. The people in your class don't know that you're there. What would you want to overhear about you as a coach? So my answer back then was always that I made a difference in their day. Kind of to tail end what we talked about at the beginning. So I suppose like the expected answer would be like, oh, I want like the people in the WWE to say I'm great or whatever. But I think my genuine answer is to just hear like regular trainees be like, I'm so happy I started. Because wrestling it is tough, but I do believe it's the greatest thing in the world. And I just think, like the shy person you wouldn't have expected to stick at, or maybe the person who thinks they're unathletic, or the person who hasn't found anywhere else they fit in. To hear people like that be like, I'm glad I started and I feel like I belong here. I think that would honestly be just the best thing to hear as a coach, as a person who runs a community space.
That's really nice. But you still didn't say anything nice about yourself. You somehow deflected. You got me. You got me this time, Harvey. Katey, I am gonna let you go back to Mammy Duty. Thank you so much. I know how busy you are for carving out a bit of time for us to check in. And yeah, we must do this again in the future and check in some other time. But thank you so much for joining us here on Ring Psychology, Katey Harvey. That's been our time. There you have it, guys. Katey Harvey, isn't she great? Like, she is value for money every time you have a conversation with her. And I loved how we got to chat about like reflect on when she first started watching wrestling and like her thoughts on the big picture, and even got to talk about evolution and the three-way from Sunday. So really, really good. And to be honest, I could talk to Katey for hours. She has hours worth of stories to tell. Like, I feel there's a book in there, isn't there? And she can write as well. She doesn't talk about it that much, but like she has we only scratched the surface. So I feel like we'll definitely do a part two sometime in the future, because she is fantastic. But thank you so much to Katey. She actively, like, I've cut a lot of it out, but she is very much on mammy duty as we speak, and she made time. And yeah, no, it's massively appreciated. So yeah, thank you to Katey Harvey, and thank you to you guys as always for listening. Last reminder before we wrap up, we do have SummerSlam coming up in under 3 weeks now. That's flown in, guys. I better start organizing it. No, I'm only joking. It's going to be a great night. I have the whole weekend organized, and now we're in the fun part of now we can tell you all the stuff we've been planning for the past few months. Tickets on eventbrite.ie. You can either get 2-night tickets or you can get 1-night tickets. Saturday, like I said, the top of the show is going to be a beach party where you can win free drink. Sunday, we'll announce the special theme. We'll announce that by the next time we're talking on this show, so I'll be able to tell you all and discuss it all openly and freely. But please, please, if you're around the August Bank Holiday weekend, don't be sitting at home and watching it. You don't even have to get too locked. You can come go on the water. Wink. Um, or at least tell whoever might be giving out to you about going out for boat nights that you're going to be on the water, and then, oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, and then you can make that's Bank Holiday Monday's problem. That's fine. Don't be worrying about it. You'll have experienced SummerSlam in the best way possible if you can't be in MetLife by that point. So you've already won. Guys, back very shortly with another conversation. I won't give away who we have. Lined up, mainly because I don't have anyone yet. I need to get on that. No, I joke. We do. Guys, in the meantime, tickets eventbrite.ie. Follow us at hashtag #GlobeLoads on socials if you haven't already. If you haven't and you just listened to this podcast and it's your first time, we'd appreciate you subscribing, recommending, sharing. We're a new podcast. I know it's obviously a Low Blows presentation. Low Blows has been going since 2014, but we are a brand new podcast. So we need to kind of spread the word. So I'd appreciate if you enjoy this, any help you can in doing so. In the meantime, I should chat to you shortly. But until that point, I've been Jer Legged, and that's been our time.